morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to thank Export TT for giving me this opportunity this morning to say a few words on our experience in Suriname. Let me first start by saying is that my first experience was actually in 81, 82, when I was working for Schlumberger, and we were invited to Suriname by the then chairman of Statoil, a gentleman called Mr. Eddie Jarrop, quite a famous gentleman. And we came down there and we did presentations back then when Statoil was first starting up their operations. And we had a really good working week with him. And then we came back with our proposals to start up business in Suriname. And when we got in, nothing has changed as far as flights were concerned. You get in the wee hours of the morning. And that morning I had a meeting with Mr. Jarrop to really finalize our contract. And that was the night of the coup. That was the night of the coup. So I spent 10 days there. My employer had lost contact with me for 10 days. And at the end of it, Schlumberger decided that they were not going to venture or move forward with the proposal that was very passionate to me because of the fact that I was kind of lost for 10 days. And since then, I have always wanted to get back into Suriname. It was a coup, and I guess we're accustomed to coups in Trinidad. And nothing really disturbed me. I have to say it was an experience of my life. But I've always wanted the opportunity to really get back into Suriname, and that opportunity presented itself in 2009. I made other trips there, but got this opportunity in 2009, and I have to tell you that my experience was a very positive one. During my career with Tucker Energy Services, I was involved with opening up of operations in Venezuela, or expanding operations in Venezuela, and also in Colombia and Brazil. And I have to tell you that my experience with Suriname was the best of those three experiences. Suriname, well, first let me just say that to both Larry and Clive, that your presentation was excellent. In fact, thanks for doing my presentation for me. And I found it to be very accurate. A lot of the points that I wanted to bring out were very clearly stated, and I can sanction everything that they basically said. The people of Suriname are very, very friendly people. I've always felt very at home in Suriname. When you enter the airport, first of all, I've never even been questioned, or nobody that works for me has ever been questioned as to, what are you here for? As they see that Trinidad and Tobago passport, you stamp and you go through. So people always ask me any issues getting into Suriname, and I tell you, I feel a lot more comfortable coming into Suriname than any of our CARICOM neighbors up north. Much more comfortable. They speak the language, the English language. Just about everybody speaks. There are very few occasions that you find yourself where somebody doesn't speak. You might go to some little parlor or something and maybe they can't speak there. But when you're dealing in the energy sector, as far as working with Statoil, your contracts are in English. Everybody speaks to you in English. The morning meetings, everything is conducted in English. It really is an amazing people that could really learn a new language and always speak in English. I think that is very welcoming and very friendly. It was mentioned that the flights, yes, you go in late at night, By the time you get to the hotel, it's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And in the energy sector, it actually is almost earlier. What you tend to find is meetings are very early in the morning. So what happens is you get in at 2:30, and then we'd have to go out to leave Paramaribo and go out to the field, Saramacca. So you're pulling out by 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. So no sleep, and your meetings are always very early and tend to last till about lunchtime, and then after lunch, you might have a meeting up until 1, 2 o'clock, and then you're pretty well finished for the day. Tucker's experience there was really an excellent one. I think we were maybe lucky in that there was a demand for our services, so we had that opportunity to quote. When doing business internationally, I tend to tell people that you got to have deep pockets. You got to have deep pockets, because the first thing you go into a market, and it might take you 2 years of losses before you actually start turning a profit, because you got to go there, you got to get established, you got to get your equipment and your people in place. And by the time you get established and running, you don't underestimate, and you have to plan for that working capital, and so your startup always is a bit of a difficult. My Suriname experience was quite the opposite. It was towards the end of 2009. It was somewhere like about the 20th of December that we got notified that we were successful in our tender. And the startup date was the 5th of January. So we had to ship down equipment, get it cleared, and be operational in 15 days over the Christmas period. So when we got the deadline, I signed the contract very nervously in Suriname and thought there's no way possible that we could be operational in 15 days. Well, guess what? We were operational in 15 days. And that's thanks a lot to the Surinamese people and all the support that they gave us to start up the operations. Shipping from Trinidad is no problem whatsoever. I heard mention of two or three shipments that go weekly. I mean, you ship stuff on a Thursday and you have it cleared by Monday, Tuesday of the following week. So there is great movement. Of course, flights are probably 5 days a week. Not the best 5 days, because sometimes, you'd like to go in there for maybe 3 days, and it's kind of difficult you want to spend at least 2-3 days there. And, so you can, it never seems to work perfectly for you, but you got flights with both Caribbean Airlines and Suriname Airways. And, everything is at night, because of course your flights, leave Trinidad and go northwards and come back on a night. And then what tends to happen is they continue on to Suriname, Guyana at night. So they make that late night flights, and then they bring people back into Trinidad as a hub to be able to move to to North America and England, etc. The couple points that what we did when we went down there, we were advised, and it's worked very well for us, is first of all, we met all the banks. Now you feel very comfortable in Suriname because you go into the hotel and there's an RBTT or a Republic Bank. So you take your Trinidad credit card and you stick it in the machine and you get Surinamese currency. So you literally feel like you're at home. What we did as well is we were advised to link up with one of the major auditing companies, and how that worked for us. We actually chose Pricewaterhouse that we work with in Trinidad, and they have their people down there, but any of the top auditing companies, and they really have handled our business for us. So as was mentioned earlier, you start off with the Chamber of Commerce. That's a must. The Chamber of Commerce is who's going to take you through the process. They're going to take you through each step of the way. And then if you use one of the auditing companies, like what we use them for is they actually, we have an account set up in Suriname, and they actually will make payments on behalf of us. So if I have to pay a supplier or anything of that nature, I just instruct them, and they will vet it, and at very reasonable fees. So they do our accounts for us, they handle everything, and so that type of partnership we've had with the auditing. So instead of us having, say, administrative people, accountants, various things, we handle all that through our accounting partners, which we've found to be cost effective and of course very diligent. The banks, as I said, it's great to have to deal with the local banks. The two negatives that I would tell you come out of, for me, coming out of Suriname, which have both been mentioned already. One is there's no double taxation agreement. So, we are hoping and we are lobbying that this hopefully will be reversed. We're working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to try to lobby for that. So what happens is, in other words, how it should work with a double taxation agreement is you pay tax at source, okay? So your source is where you work, which is Suriname, and the taxation there, I'm thinking, is somewhere like 35%, 35 to 38%. So after paying that, and then you send your US dollars back to Trinidad, then that's revenue in Trinidad as well, so you're taxed again. So that'll really be, that's the one, I would say, the biggest negative is the high level of taxation, which really is unfair, and hopefully that can be reversed in the not too distant future. Especially when you really see, how welcoming they are to us working in Suriname. The second big factor, which was dealt with in quite depth by Clive, is labor. Do not underestimate the labor. When I first went there, I was told if you hire somebody, you own them for life. So be very careful of that. There are multiple ways, like having a contract for a year. We even have HR people that sort of advised us and said, before you hire the person, they sign a resignation letter. I don't know how official that is, but they said they have that signed. Yeah, I'm not sure how correct that is, but you have to protect yourself against that, because the laws are very strong, and there are other ways. For example, some of our labor down there, we actually hire through a company, and so yes, you pay them a fee, but that's another option of having a labor provider to you, and you just have your key people that are actually on your payroll. So there are ways that you can sort of work around that. So those are the two negatives. You're paid in US dollars. We've never had any issues. In fact, you probably use the same bank that you use in Trinidad. If it's BTT or it's Republic Bank, it's just like having the same account. And so it is very straightforward. We've never had any issues in transferring US dollars. So no issues from that perspective. Trinidad is recognized, is highly respected and recognized by the people in the energy sector in Suriname. It's almost amazing. I think what has happened over the years is they've had interface with the international world, and let's just say that some of the international companies have not shared their knowledge with them to the level that Trinidad has. So there's a huge level of respect when we go down there and we train. What we've been known to is everything we know, we train the Surinamese people, and they respect us for that. They truly respect us for that. And so they may think, I think they have established where they look at Trinidad and saying, we are more trustworthy, we're more open, they respect our training more than they would expect training, because sometimes from some of the other parts of the world, they may just say, well, we let you know just what you need to know, the least possible amount of information. And Trinidad's reputation, I call it the Trinidad model, where we share very openly with anybody. We've had the same experience in dealing with places like Ghana and East and West Africa, and so we've got a great reputation, and I think Suriname really shows that. So when you go into Suriname, you're quite amazed of how many Trinidad companies operate there, how many of the largest number of expatriate staff that Stats Oily has is Trinidadians, by far. I was privileged just about a month or 6 weeks ago to go down for the farewell of their director of operations, Mr. Glenn Cyrus. And at his farewell, he spoke in Dutch, and he stopped and he pointed out to one of the, as his career in Stats Oily, he spoke about his relationship with Trinidadians of a number of companies and the phenomenal partnership that Stats Oily had with the Trinidadian suppliers of technology, of know-how, of people. And it was very touching to be at that presentation and at his farewell. And in his farewell speech, he switched to English and acknowledged the phenomenal input of the Trinidad and Trinidad people into the energy sector in Suriname. And that was very touching, But they are really very genuine people. They're very nice, very accommodating, give you a lot of advice. So I really have virtually nothing that I can say that, my experience down there has been negative. They have a tremendous rule of law. Just like Trinidad, I think some of the presentations, the presentation before, talked a bit about the drug economy, like Trinidad. I'm not sure we're very much different. But what they don't have down there is crime. Okay, when we live with crime here, you feel very safe in Suriname. There certainly appears to be no drug-related crime that you experience down there. There's a strong rule of law. I've always admired that what they do down there is if you were to be speeding or something happened to you, it's very simple. When the police stop you, I haven't been stopped, but I know this from some of my employees, that they just your license, you hand them your license, and here's a fine, whatever it is, a speeding fine or whatever it is, and you go to the bank and you pay the fine, and you walk with your paper to the police station and you get back your driver's permit. Very effective. It works really well, They collect their money within 24 hours because you don't want to be caught without your driver's license. But everything works. The rule of law really, really works in Suriname. They just did this remarkable refinery upgrade, and when you go on to the refinery, you will see Trinidad companies throughout. So all the upgrades, the people that are working on the customer side, you will see Trinidad, people from Trinidad that have, been involved with it. So, my experience, it really is an excellent one. If we take the port operations, what is happening there? First of all, you have almost like two levels of operations. First of all, you have your Stats Oily land operations, okay? So I always let people make sure people understand that these are shallow wells. The wells are basically 1,000 to 1,500 feet deep. So you might get excited and you think, wow, look at the number of wells that are drilled in Suriname, more wells than Trinidad. But they're very shallow wells. They're drilled within 4 or 5 days. They use what I call fit-for-purpose technology. which means that it is, when you have a well that is going to produce 10 or 12 barrels a day, you have to go with technology that can make 10 or 12 barrels or 10 or 15 barrels a day work, okay? So I call it fit for purpose technology. That's the area where Tucker Energy has operated so far. What is exciting is that they're really, the experts and the geologists really feel that there's something big in that whole area, and that area being Suriname, French Guiana, and Guyana. So in most people's view, it is just when do they have a big discovery down there or something of significance, because it's a petroleum-rich area and or province. You had French Guiana finding something on the that they considered to be linked to Africa when the two continents split, and they had a find down there, and so there's so much area to explore that it's unbelievable. So it's only when it will happen. Now, at this point in time, whilst you're in an exploration mode, really and truly, as far as ports goes, everything is going to be staged out of Trinidad. Okay, I think that's quite clear. And if you really ask people, they would say, when we find something, then of significance, then we would, develop our own ports to be able to handle that. But once you're in the exploration mode, it makes a lot of sense to work out of Trinidad. And I know the National Energy is working towards the concept of saying that we will handle deep water and we will handle that basin, being French Guiana, and Suriname, out of Galliota Point with the new facility that they're putting in place there. So that gives you another advantage. It gives you the advantage that if everything is being staged out of Trinidad, and that seems to be the best option they have, at least in the short to medium term, then that gives us like a great advantage. So that really is from my perspective, don't expect it to be a massive, there was generator of revenue. We haven't had that. What we've had is very steady income. We've had small but steady profits. So it's, when I always give the story that we were profitable from, small profit, but we was profitable from, say, our second month in operations. And when you go into an international market in the energy sector, that basically is impossible. Totally impossible. It might take you, as I say, a year or two. So all your fundamental things that you would expect to happen, it kind of turned it all upside down. So from our perspective, it's been a great experience. I really enjoy going down to Suriname because the people are just so nice, so welcoming. If we go in there for 3 days, we hardly sleep because the night you get in, there's no sleep, and the night you leave, there's no sleep. And the people are so nice. I remember on this last trip that I went down on, one of the big customers had his wife prepare lunch for us. So in the little Saramaka area, his wife cooked this wonderful lunch. And so when you're talking about, make sure that you eat. You don't just take little bits and pieces. You must eat a proper meal. And then we left there and we had a meeting with the geologist and sort of senior geologist in a different area. And he invited us to his home. So we had only eaten about 2-3 hours before, and his wife put out this phenomenal meal. And it would be very rude if you just took little bits and pieces. And then we left there and we went to the farewell of the director, of which we had to eat again. So I think it was the first time in my life that I have had 3 major meals in 6 hours, and I came out of there. But, wonderful people. Another experience is when we went down there on one of our trade missions. One of our errors that we made is that we did not realize that it was a local public holiday on the Monday. Priya can give this story. And when we We got in there on the Sunday night, and the Monday we had meetings with the Chamber of Commerce and with Mr. Amarali, and I want to emphasize how important Mr. Amarali is, because so first of all, we go in, and here is a big gathering, just about the who's who of Suriname at the Chamber of Commerce, where they rolled out what it takes to do business, and very encouraging. And we must have had something like a 80 or 90% turnout to that session, and this was their public holiday. Amazing. I was just thinking, if we had visitors from some other part of the world come to Trinidad, on June 19th, Labor Day holiday coming up here, how many of us would turn up to that holiday, to meet the visitors? And the answer would be probably nobody. We just say we couldn't have it. They never told us that they couldn't, that really could we plan it for the following day. They all turned out. And even more importantly than that, Mr. Amarali himself, we went to his office, and it was his party that was in power. That it was I think it was the Moron, was it? Yeah, and it was their national holiday. So he turned up in his African garb, and it was like, and he left the function to come to present to us. So it was a phenomenal honor that somebody, the vice president of the country, could leave and come to visit with us, and then go back and he spent a good hour with us, and encouraged us, and told us that, in other words, that if you wanted to form a company there, that it could be done within 4 days, okay? And that once you go through the chamber and you get your application, your forms in to establish a company, and he says, their job is to get it to me within 24 hours, and I will go through it, and I will then hand carry it to Mr. Bouters, have a presentation with him, and so within 4 days you could get the company registered. So, that's phenomenal. And he says, any issues, you just call back, and I want to hear when I next meet with you, I want to hear that your experience it was all done in 4 days. So very, very welcoming environment, very encouraging environment. So, when you look into the areas that I've always been amazed at, one of them, of course, is agriculture. I mean, gold, bauxite, of course, energy. But when you travel through all the little villages and you see what they do agriculture-wise, it just blows your mind. Whether it's it's orchids, it's fish farming, it's every imaginable. Their hobby is agriculture. Everybody has a backyard garden, and so to me, a lot of potential for us as well. Anything to do with agriculture is another very big option. Most of us when we go to the market anywhere in Trinidad and Tobago, and we see these beautiful yellow bananas, it's all Suriname. If you just look just look in any little village in Trinidad, and you see the box below, and you'll see product of Suriname. So, as I said, great partnership, very welcoming people, very nice people, and so I think, in other words, I know we have this planned, and I think which is our 3rd delegation. We're going down there, 5th, sorry. Wow. So this is the 5th time we've gone down there. But it really is, I would have to say, probably our biggest success of everything we've done to move internationally. When you go into Suriname and you realize how many Trinidad companies, how many Trinidadians are working down there, and you don't really hear any negatives coming out of anybody. As I said, the only thing is, we need to deal with that double taxation agreement, because at the end of the day, in other words, the revenue is relatively small, and you would like to be in a position to be able to get a more equitable share of profits. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope I've been some assistance.